I think I'm recording. This looks like it. All right, the Piro. I was just not even paying attention. Went to wash dishes, and then he brought up in Mendham. I heard. I said, "What the fuck?" Because it was just babble and rambles. Um, so I think we'll play from this point on and see what the hell he does with this mush. But he just makes these overtly stupid accusations, and you're just, I mean, it's so demonstrably a silly paraphrase or a silly accusation. And so it's just more like this fake news stuff and fake arguments and propaganda. I mean, what is it other than propaganda? I mean, when you distort the reality so profoundly, how can anybody accuse you of anything other than propaganda? Being a liar, being disingenuous, just, not giving a shit about the truth. And that's what you've been accused. That's the counter accusation being made. And that's why you're sort of a despicable character, because you really don't give a shit. This is all just some sort of spectator sport, where in which you put no skin in the game, in a sense. So, no integrity required.
Do other things aerodynamically with it by the fact that it's wrong. So nothing's off limits, but over time, if you have a good what do they call that, sparring partner, then especially of a certain kind, then you'll learn certain physics of your balance and whatnot, and you won't have to change. And you certainly aren't adopting their strategies. Quite the opposite. And that's not the only person you spar with. You're making your...
So he's calling it sparring, as if that's what we're here to do, is just play fight. That's like doing the sword fight with your little suit on and your fake mask and everything, and saying this is an accurate simulation of reality when not really. Okay, your little fake swords and your fake play game isn't really the reality. The swords are in reality are heavy, and a lot of things are different. So it really isn't the same game at all. And of course you can't be killed, so not the same at all.
Is your approach more general purpose the more widely you do that sparring? So it automatically works, except for in the case of in Mendham.
So I don't know what automatically works, except in the case of in Mendham, whatever that is. Yeah, that's right. Fake, lying bullshit doesn't work with him. That's right. He'll force you to actually make a real argument, not a fake one.
Now it has the opposite effect, and it declines into a scientific theory, which I love. Personal scientific interpretation, scientific theories. There's
so he loves people rambling and bambling about stuff they just made up that doesn't have to have any rules of coherency to any kind of notion of how the hell you could prove it or how the hell you could connect it to anything really happening in the world, like whether you could explain how a magnet works, for example, which his physics still can't do.
To do that, but choosing one where hundreds of years
choosing one. So again, it's kind of silly, right? I mean, obviously I didn't make the choice. And the clear truth is that, yes, in conversations with idiots like you who are fanatics for this nonsense, it just occurred to me that, well, somebody ought to look into this, because this obviously can't be the truth. This wacky photon splits in two, entangles itself, interferes with itself, offends itself, whatever, bullshit. And that photon plus photon equals no photon, all that kind of nonsense. Well, that rubbish can't be the truth. So, so I went looking for the truth and found that, everything they believe is believed because of a fallacy, because they accepted some notion they never demonstrated to be true. And they just keep trying to prove what was never established by any evidence, really. It looks like. That's all they have. And now they just, 100 years later, they're still saying it looks like. Even though there's a ton of paradoxes it creates. Oh, no, it still looks like. No, it doesn't look like. When you really add up the evidence, it doesn't look like it at all.
Science has to contain a hidden, highly orchestrated...
Okay, these are his words, right? So he's just demonstrating, he's just making it so easy for me to point out how he's just a compulsive liar, a propagandist, an insane exaggerator, right? So he's saying history's made out of this, some sort of, let's hear his exact words again. Just complete crap, accusations I haven't made. I've made the accusation that human beings are dumb as fuck. Clearly, it's 2019 and most of the world's population still believes in little heavens floating in the clouds and angels and demons and all that kind of rubbish. Clearly, human beings can be demonstrated to be really stupid as fuck. And that's the only accusation I've made, is that stupid humans, as they will stupidly do, jump to idiotic and inane and insane conclusions. They don't want the truth to be, it's a pile of dog shit. They want the truth to be, it's a alien life form coming to steal my popcorn. I mean, they want a much more elaborate story. They want the Jedi story. They don't want the you're just a walking piece of mold story.
Of science has to contain a hidden, highly orchestrated.
Okay, hidden and highly orchestrated. I've never made any such accusations ever. There's no quotes you're going to find where I say there's some secret books where Newton pointed out how he's just bullshitting people or any of that crap. Nowhere. No hidden story. Highly orchestrated. Where have I ever said that anybody orchestrated it? That there was any even communication between like Einstein and Heisenberg and Schwarzkopf and blah 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 to manipulate it, some kind of wacky dopey imaginary space theory? Where did I make that accusation? Oh, that's right, nowhere.
Conspiracy.
So he just wants to turn it into like, okay, because I don't like you, I'm going to compare you to flat earthers. There, we're done with now I don't have to argue anymore because I've tainted you, and that's all I need to do. I just need to throw the taint on you. So this fucking child molester, I mean, clearly seems like, what the hell is that shit? I mean, like, again, you're just making my argument for me. This is how sloppy you are about facts. This is how bad you are at figuring out that you should have evidence before you claim something is fact or real or the truth. This is how much disregard he has for the truth. He's just showing you right here. This is how much I don't give a fuck about the facts or the evidence. All right, I have an agenda, and my agenda is more important. My agenda is Gary's has to be wrong. Gary bad. Gary talking like I'm just robotic mold. No. I'm special. I can imitate my dog.
Even if it was accidental.
There was no accidental. I never did it. I never implied it. I never stated it. I just go through the course of events. I pointed out how the Young experiment, totally unremarkable. And why was it remarkable? Because apparently all the physicists forgot or didn't even care to research that Newton had already done this shit. He had already figured out that there's the Newton's rings. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that they forgot about Newton's rings, just because they spread the pattern, in one dimension. So they just took away the round aperture and they just made it a rectangle instead. I mean, clearly it's still Newton's rings, right? They hadn't advanced the experiment any. So this is just crap. So because I point that out, unremarkable experiment, somehow I've made the point that there's a conspiracy. No. That somehow Benjamin Franklin conspired to get plus and minus wrong. No. That somehow Maxwell conspired, well, he might have, to try to wavyize magnetism and electricity. No accusations have been made. Just a lie.
It's impossible to believe.
Yes, it would be impossible to believe that there was some mass conspiracy to be stupid. To pretend we're dumb. And we're going to jump to conclusions. As a conspiracy. Like they were dumb on purpose. They should say, well, why were they dumb on purpose? That doesn't make any sense. Why are they flat earthers on purpose? I mean, that's just retarded. Clearly, the chain of events, you can see it. Again, what was the New York Times was lying when they said Einstein right? No, the New York Times isn't a physicist. The New York Times can't figure out what all this stuff means. So another scientist told them Einstein was right, and they said, okay, Einstein's right. because they're not scientists. They didn't look at the evidence and say, wait a minute, so this whole bent light thing means that photons are the only thing in the universe that is affected twice as much by gravity, even though they're supposed to be something that don't have any mass, so they're not even supposed to be affected by gravity in the first place, but they're affected twice as much. But how could twice as much matter if they don't have any mass? Well, that doesn't work, does it? How do you do the equation exactly? How do you do the gravitational equation on a photon if you don't give it mass? Oh, that's right, you can't. So you must be giving it mass. Retards.
It is a failure.
But you're going to eat those words, okay? And because you've made a point of doing this over and over again, I'm going to make you eat them really hard. I mean, yeah, the crow is going to have its claws out and its beak is going to be really big, and you're going to eat it right up your ass, fucker. Because this is just bullshit. You're just being a fucking slandering, maligning, cheap-shotting motherfucking jackass. I mean, you know, if you're making this argument from some position where you've actually presented one single piece of reasonable evidence, you might have an argument to make. But you're the guy who didn't do that. You're the guy who so misunderstood the subject that you kept saying that single slit diffraction was different than double slit. Even though I can provide you quotes from MIT professors telling you, no, there's no difference. You're saying you're smarter than they are. Okay, well, why don't you argue with them?
For me, I mean.
Yes, for you, because of the lies you just told. So yes, if that's all I was doing was making up a conspiracy theory and saying they're all liars, no, what I'm doing is making actual arguments about, well, surfaces and how surfaces are complex areas in physics, and that the physicists shouldn't assume the surfaces are tables and that photons could bounce off them or something. That it might be a little more complicated than that, right? Oh, that's outrageous. And then I point out how, well, beam splitter doesn't make much sense, does it? I mean, how's it splitting the beam? I mean, you're saying that half the beam goes through and half the beam doesn't. Well, what decides what half goes through, and how does it make that decision? I'm pointing out how, well, that's kind of a complex subject, isn't it? Because 50-50 mirror on a piece of glass isn't going to work, because we already know the glass surfaces reflect some of the light. So we already can't have 50-50 mirror, right? And then when you have this little half-silvered thing, what does that make? Oh, it's a diffraction gradient. How is it not? So why don't you tell me, Piero, why don't you explain to me how Michelson and Morley was correct in ignoring that fact? Ignoring that it's a diffraction gradient. Everybody who's used a 50-50 silvered mirror, aren't they ignoring that it's a diffraction gradient? And that it matters? The light that reflects off the silver is going to have something different happen to it than the light that goes through? How is that a lie? How is that a conspiracy theory? Pointing out actual factual details. I mean, you're despicable. You're just such a despicable creature. You're just such a scum. A lying, Trumpy scum.
So yeah, I mean, people's interpretations of things is really, it's hard for me to follow sometimes.
Right. You see, it's hard for you to follow. Yeah, because you don't pay any attention to details. You're just all about this superficial crap, it looks like. And that's as far as you go. Period.
Even though I think I'm pretty good at it. I mean, for example, am the world's #1 expert in Gary's...
I don't know how he could say anything that you're #1 expert about anything, me. That's just so fucking rude. So fucking rude.
Big system.
So he's not. Obviously, he hasn't watched most of my videos, most of the physics videos. And he certainly hasn't paid any attention to any of them, because he can't paraphrase a single one of them correctly. Let's go through that again.
Sometimes. And even though I think I'm pretty good at it. I mean, for example, am the world's #1 expert in Gary's scientific system.
So he's my scientific system, which is really my unification theory. So he can't even say the words, you know. It's a scientific system, you know. And clearly the biggest advantage it has over his nonsense is that it actually does unify physics. and it does explain where the energy comes from for gravity, and more importantly, I think, magnetism. A fact your theory can't do anything with at all. It's just an empty hole in your physics book. You flip through your physics book and it's all these subjects, but yeah, magnetism, yeah, no, just an empty page. You have nothing. Absolutely nothing. No clue. You have no clue where the energy comes from, and you have no clue how it does what it does. No clue.
Better than Gary, because I remember the history.
Better than Gary. So he knows my theory better than Gary because he knows some sort of history, right? When there was no history. The history was I watched a few two-slit experiments after having some conversations about vague physics with you, and I was like, no, they can't believe that's true. There's got to be a better answer than that. And I realized, no, this is what they really believe. I thought it was just some sort of string theory thing, you know, this whole wave particle interference thing. I didn't think they took any of that shit seriously. And then when I found out, no, this is what serious physics, they actually talk like this. So it turns into a bunch of little baby waves, an infinite number of little waves, and little waves interfere with each other, and beep, 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 and a little photon lands somewhere. They actually believe this shit. And I found it preposterous that grown-up, adult, mature brains could fall for such a fucking three-bear story.
Studied the whole history of it, the motivation, and how some of the...
So he thinks he knows the history, but he doesn't know the history. Like I said, I don't think he still thinks that the single slit pattern is something different than the double slit. That somehow it's a different mechanism. That this one you can call diffraction, and this one you can call interference. He still thinks crap like that, and he thinks he knows something about the history. He doesn't know shit.
And so it's overall incoherence. I mean, I've never...
Okay, it's overall incoherence. It's overall incoherent. It's overall incoherent. It's incoherent. Overall incoherent. You know, you don't have to make an argument. You don't have to provide any evidence. You just sit there and you can just state as an assertion that somehow, oh yeah, no, people can't figure out. Let's see, electrons and protons have a thing called charge. What makes them chargy? Well, somehow they're reacting to the environment in opposite ways. Well, what if the environment actually had a little opposite part in it too? Yeah, like the charge actually came from the fact that the force had plusness and minusness. Well, maybe that's incoherent. That's incoherent. I'm actually explaining how gravity has to have a mechanical mechanism, that matter doesn't just move because you say the geometry says so. That, you know, it would make a lot more sense if there was an actual thing, a force that was actually pushing something for a change. Or even just the simple argument that push is the more elemental function than pull. That to him is incoherent. It's incoherent.
Yeah, that it was incoherent.
Yeah, it's incoherent. There it is again. Another it's incoherent. There, I'm done. No, you haven't finished your job here. No, it's incoherent. Is to sit there and first you have the perfect eclipse environment in 2018, right? And nobody did the experiment. Nobody. The most famous experiment almost in physics, like in the top 3. Nobody did it. Then you claim that the little bizarre images you get in a few of these galactic lensing images, and yet you don't have a single image of all the other phenomenon you should see if lensing actually happened. If light was actually bent by gravity, then you should see suns create huge giant blobs of light, and you should see all kinds of light effects. Lenses create all kinds of image distortions, and you should be seeing all kinds of stuff distorted based on its proximity. There's no focal length in the galaxy lenses. They will just magnify photons from any location. They don't care where the photons come from. So why are you playing this game like they do? What's incoherent is to believe something even though the evidence is completely inconsistent with all the stuff that should be happening doesn't exist. If what you're saying is true, photons are so easily bent by gravity, so easy that they can be zillions of miles from a gravitational body and be bent, then there's implications to that, which mean all these other photons should be bent all over the place, and they're not. It's incoherent to assert something that creates a paradox with the evidence. It's not consistent with the evidence. That's incoherent.
Interested in it. It's just sad that it's totally an exercise in this. Like with that math, here's an example where
yeah, it's an exercise in, yes, it's quite futile talking to idiots. All right, and that's all this is about. And as I've pointed out, the truth isn't elusive. The truth is right there in front of us. I mean, it can't be rationally argued that it's hard to see how evolution is the truth. It's easy to see. The evidence is glaring. The amount of evidence is obscenely huge. There's just no reason. And all of these arguments are just, in a sense, the same vein. Okay? The simple argument that push is the more elemental force is just too obvious. It shouldn't be debatable by anybody. Everybody should concede it. And if you want to argue, well, yes, it's more elemental, but it just doesn't happen to be the way the universe works, fine, argue that. But don't pretend that it's not true that push is much more elemental. And don't pretend that you have an energy mechanism for the movement in gravity when you don't. Because you don't. Saying geometry did it and making the excuse that, well, whatever goes into the well flies back out of the well with the same amount of energy, therefore I don't have to account for it because whatever it took, it gave back. I can borrow from the vacuum as long as I pay it back to the vacuum. I mean, that's circular reasoning. It's obviously circular. You know, you start off with fake momentum, and then you give back your fake momentum. I mean, anybody can do that. I mean, that's just like me making up a story about how, yeah, my skin is a facade, there's really an alien inside of me, blah, 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 and I can just make up a fake little story as long as I make excuses for why you don't see the alien.
Feeling, and I'm like, this is what I don't want to deteriorate to. I think that I could contribute.
I don't think I deteriorate to. Just more mumbling. Yeah, so more mumbles, more just vague notions of somehow, you know, you're trying to do your best when clearly your best is all I can do is hatchet jobs. I can't do any real sophisticated kind of you know, I can't be like a real warrior that actually, you know, fights fair. You know, I have to hide behind rocks and just throw bullshit at people. You know,
math on the order of a weird fractals or something. You know, I'm playing with that one math program that I was showing you guys. I really, you know,
you guys, who I don't know who the you guys were that found that all so fucking fascinating. Here's a very specialized niche mathematical subject. Enjoy. I don't think so. I mean, I could do videos, you know, let's examine the anuses of turtles, you know, and so we'll just go through a whole bunch of tortoise anuses versus water turtle anuses and just do a bunch of anus examinations. That would probably, frankly, I don't know how that could fail to be more interesting than whatever the shit it was you were doing.
Where I'm like, oh my God, I could discover some sort of new mathematical fractal type set and, you know, moment of Nobel laureates and all of that. And it was like a half second or a second just for me thinking of what it was real.
So he thinks he's going to find the special fractal that saves mankind, cures cancer, the fractal that cures cancer. Bizarre.
The way to describe it is like, oh my God, I'm about to make a discovery, and then there's this idea of, what if it was a real discovery, you know? And it was good, and I like having that kind of feeling while doing it. On the other hand, I don't want you. If I'm afraid I would hook a star to, oh, it's got to be, you know, I've got to be appreciated for this, and it doesn't really matter. I enjoy thinking this stuff through, And
You enjoy pretending to be doing something useful. Oh, I get it. Oh, amazing. I mean, he really thinks, yeah, if I study fractals, I'll figure out the super fractal that'll be infinite energy. The infinite energy fractal. Okay, sure you will.
somehow how you make, amazing discoveries, historic discoveries or whatever, or are the first person to voice them, or whatever it is that happens.
Yes, amazing discoveries are created by just pointing out how, holy shit, how wrong can you assholes get it? Like Darwin, for example. Shouldn't even have taken, right? Darwin's grandfather was an evolutionist. So even before Darwin compiled all this evidence with the pigeons and the scallops and the birds and the blah blah and the tortoises and the rest of the iguanas and all that crap, before he even compiled all that evidence, and sheep and all the other crap that he compiled as evidence for this theory of mutation, his grandfather already believed it, okay, because he already saw that. He already saw that, yeah, you can breed sheep into anything you want. I could probably make a sheep with 14 heads and 76 legs. Just give me enough time and I can make one. So they already had figured out that, yeah, this, what we are is totally mutable. All I have to do is take two funny-looking people, segregate them for a couple of generations, and I'll have a whole little group of funny-looking people. I can make people short, I can make people tall, I can make them fat, I can make them thin. Duh. I could make them into a gorilla. True.
And I think that's one reason I've been so positive towards the dissident science movement.
I haven't seen any of that, frankly. So, yeah, good luck with that. I haven't seen you do anything. I haven't seen it, so go ahead. Why don't you show us some great flat earther videos and shit? Why don't you show us some dissidents you think are doing a swell job? And I'm sure they're just going to be dissidents who are saying things that are so convoluted that it's incoherent. That there's no way somebody rational without saying, well, I got to pick all this piece of shit together apart. I mean, all this guy's really done is flipped a bunch of equations upside down and turned them horizontally. He's done a flip and a flop, and somehow, oh, hey, I've changed reality. No, you didn't. You just turned the frickin' formula backwards.
In it, and also not critical of that somebody's into it in the past, except for Gary.
Yeah, right. I'm not into it, okay? I'm not into it. This isn't like a hobby. This isn't like some kind of bullshit like that. No, this is as real as it gets. I'm living on a fucking planet covered with fucking imbeciles who just keep trying to pervert the reality into their little childhood fable notions of Prince Charming and all that kind of happily ever after circular bullshit, wonderful meat grinder fun. And that's not what it is. The reality is we are just fucking byproduct robots. Okay, and all this is a bunch of meat byproducts. You're just going to get ground up like any other statistical piece of shit, and the whole thing can't actually accomplish anything but clean up the mess it makes. It makes a bunch of loneliness and sadness and blah, 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 and it satisfies a little tiny bit of it and therefore says everything's okay, when everything sucks.
And I myself feel I have, theories like that. They just don't, well, to me, I don't like.
Yeah, you don't talk about them because you'd be subjected to substantial criticism for being a fucking fabulist, a phantasmagorical, making up a bunch of silly stories about reality. The water gets hungry, and then water droplets get tired, and then they get despondent and lonely.
Violate what seem to be the facts to me. So there's a limit to how much it's, but there's a big limit to how much interpretation scientists put on it. You've got scientists that say it's all particles. You got other ones it's all weight.
Okay, so you keep saying these things. I make the counter argument. Show me one. Show me one of these scientists who say it's all particles. Show me one. Show me one fucking physicist who says it's all particles. Show me one. Because that's just an overt lie, right? I mean, there's just no way that's what they think. You can't, and you can't get away with wavicles, okay? So I'm saying real particles. That means just things at a frequency. No special properties, no wavicalness. You know, not particles through dominoes or particles through ether. That doesn't count as a particle theory.
You got other ones, it's like, it's all information. You got other ones, whatever.
Yes, it's all bullshit is what it is. So yes, whatever is what I would say to it. Yes, it's you can put it all in that category. It all just sounds like a bunch of, let's just make up a religion. And, well, the old religion had the Holy Ghost in it. Maybe we can get rid of that because that's kind of silly. What do we do with the Holy Ghost? I mean, what is he? Is he a tranny? What is he? What's the Holy Ghost? What does he do?
But I've been pretty positive towards that whole kind of thing because, you know.
All right, so again, we have no evidence that he has ever had any positive feeling towards any dissident saying that Einstein was full of shit and Feynman was a whack job. You know, that conventional physics and all their wooey little, their 956, you know, subparticles that they've created now, and their antimatter and their dark energy. Where has he defended anybody making those accusations? So that's just all made up shit. The dissidents are saying that pretty clearly. They're saying Einstein was an asshole. They're saying dark matter's bullshit. Come on, where do you find this bullshit? So you're for the dissidents? No, you're not. Not in any way whatsoever. You're a fucking Borgy little twat doing this phantasmagorical, wavical, quantum, mysterious, wacky world. So you know, it's just such a lie, right? So he's just another lie. I'm for them. No, you're not.
It's interesting. That's basically it. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just more mumbo jumbo bullshit talk. Doesn't have anything to do with the subject. It's not just interesting. If somebody just said that to you, like you made a political comment about how, well, you know, these rich people and these capitalist companies are conspiring to keep thorium off the market and keep us cold and keep us hungry and keep us poor, and then somebody just said, well, that's interesting. No, it doesn't politically matter. It's not a dime's worth of difference. I don't think you'd say if somebody, you know, somebody just says, it's not a dime, it's just interesting. I mean, sometimes it's interesting to look at dimes, you know, head, tails, and stuff. Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, no, not important. Interesting, but unimportant. Go ahead and vote for Trump.
As far as people having their ideas, my attitude is always like, well, hey, here's some analysis tools where you can analyze those ideas. And then also...
So again, he never does any of that. So he doesn't have any analysis tools. His analysis tools are, you know, is it round like a cell? Oh, then it's a cell. Is it an on-off pattern? Oh, yeah, then it's interference. I mean, it's superficial. He just pigeonholes and profiles. He profiles the entire physical world. He just profiles it in a superficial manner. He's a bigot. He's a unicorn bigot. If it's a unicorn, he believes in it. If somebody claims it's a unicorn, he believes in it. If somebody claims it's a piece of dog shit, he doesn't believe that.
I don't mean to be patronizing, but I think most systems, the more you make them logically coherent with themselves.
Coherent, again with this coherent stuff, logically coherent. That the whole argument being made is there's nothing coherent about what the crap you're selling. Einstein isn't coherent. Quantum mechanics, virtual photon versus bent space, not coherent. Particle wave duality, not coherent. Half silvered mirrors creating equal beams of light, not coherent. None of it's coherent.
There's a mathematics. It doesn't have to be a written formal mathematics, but there's like somebody could write that. There's a symmetry or whatever, you know, a good system where things have...
So again, I can just keep saying it. Nobody's going to pay any attention to it in terms of these arguments. You know, I could just keep saying, well, why don't we have a conversation about what math is actually capable of doing? Because all I see that it's really capable of doing is formalizing effects. And so it takes a very crude look at variables, which can be causal, But I mean, again, they're put into superficial numbers. They're not variables in any kind of detail about how that mass got there, how that mass got its velocity, or any of this rest, right? I mean, the two-slit math just on its own can't do anything unless you have the Huygens to get your sine theta. Okay, so the sine theta, it has a whole bunch of geometry that goes with it. Where's the math got any of that in there? It doesn't. The math by itself doesn't say anything except there's an angle difference. Well, yeah, we can all see there's an angle difference. Of course, on, off, that's an angle difference. Yeah, I can see that. The formula's not telling me something I don't know. I have to tell the formula what the truth is before the formula will give me the truth out. I have to know the causes before I can know the effects were caused by those causes. The math can't tell you anything but the effect. It's just a formalization, a generalization of the essence of the variables. It profiles the effect into a simple diagram, and that's it. It's a profile. It doesn't explain anything about the nuance or details.
Relate one to the other, that generally those tend to be useful in whatever comes to be understood as, like what you think of now as materialistic physics, practical stuff or whatever, as it becomes considered that way. Like the conic sections, that's what I meant about the conic sections. I mean, here you have the conic sections, all the shapes of possible orbits.
So again, more of this implication too, that somehow if you're arguing about causes, somehow you're denying effects. So if I say zebras aren't trying to make their neck longer, and then like epigenetics came up years ago with Piro and To Be Serious, and they both kept trying to argue that there's this capacity for genetic code to do this improvement thing. Like I live a good life, and there's a certain part of my genetics that somehow will breed that quality. And I mean, I had to explain to these imbeciles the simple truth that no, the only thing you can do is break eggs. All you can do is cause harm. And when you break them, sometimes you cause a positive mutation. But the only way you can affect the egg is to do damage to it. You can't make the egg better. You can only break it. And that's all the epigenetic thing is I can starve you, I can poison you, I can do lots of things to you to break your eggs so that you have a mutant child. I break the chromosomes, I break their quality to create a perfect copy. So it's a less perfect copy. And we know that that's entirely what evolution is based on, is making imperfect copies. But there's nothing positive in that process. No benefits I get can make it better. I can just keep it from being made worse. That's all. And the rest of it's just error code again. The rest of it is just happy accidents. And we know the happy accidents, there's a tiny amount of happy head-on collisions. Most of them don't kill, like an axe murderer doesn't crash into a rapist. And it's a happy accident. We know that most of them aren't happy accidents. They're shitty accidents. But that's the level of the lack of detail, the lack of serious examination. This guy doesn't want to get to the truth. And again, these truths aren't hidden. They're not hard to find. The logic of them so obvious. The whole subject of epigenetics was buried in the fact of World War II and the fact that a bunch of women were starving to death, and so they had a huge increase in mutation. Because their eggs were broken.
That's weird. That's not why they were studying it. They just thought it looked cool. So, anyway, I think that's the basic gist of things. And if anybody wants to deny that I'm the best arguer of actual ideas on the YouTubes, then they can come try to have an argument with me.
Where can they have an argument with you? You're just... What an insane comment to make, in the sense that he runs away from every argument. And when you actually get him in an argument, face to face, like in a live room or something, he'll concede your argument. You'll be able to badger him enough to actually admit, okay, yes, push is more elemental. And then as soon as he gets out of the room, he'll just go right back to saying, pull. It won't matter. His concessions are a lie. Okay, so he's such a cheater. He loses and then he walks around with a fake, I won the battle belt. And he obviously lost.
Because over the years, a lot of people have run away, especially people who had some ability and / concern of building an audience.
So he's saying people ran away. These are people who don't even exist on the YouTubes anymore. So I don't think it was you that drove them off. I think I've driven more people off YouTube than you have by a long shot.
And I'm talking about, okay, we'll talk about this, and then coming up with...
I'm the Terminator of, fact-checking people or catching them on their bullshit. Compared to you, yeah. I mean, I'm solid titanium. You're oatmeal.
Yes. Oh, why they couldn't do it.
Liquid oatmeal. Yeah, you're the new Terminator. Liquid oatmeal.
And I've never liked the people to talk to. I mean, I prefer to talk to people that don't have a high audience. But most of those are not so brave either. So I really...
Yes, you would prefer to talk to lunatics and assholes. And that's why you remain difficult for anybody but somebody who has some weird, some sort of legacy attachment. They say, oh, what's Pierrot up to? Because they just can't, even though it's a shitty dog, it's their dog. So, oh yeah, well, okay, dog, shitty dog, do your shitty shit. You just say, well, I'm stuck with it. It's my shitty dog, and that's all you are. Just a useless artifact of old internet.
All the people that have been brave enough to talk to me directly. You're in a very small group of very brave people that'll talk to the friendly bear and swim with the great white shark, because you could tell he's actually harmless. I think a lot of people don't get that. And the list is long now, considering how many people, rocking Mr. E, and people that were like, bring it on, man, and then started to set things up, and then we're like, thought better of it. Why? Well, because of the Whisper campaign. So it's kind of like why...
No, yeah, they thought better of it because they said, gee, this guy's going to make me look like an idiot because he just talks idiotic crap. I don't see anything else possible happening. I mean, go ahead, do the Hillster conversation because it should be pretty hilarious. Two liquid oatmeal people having a big battle. Yeah, there won't be any battle, of course. Well, I agree. Every idiotic theory is an idiotic theory. Anything's possible, right? No. See, that's when you need somebody rational in the room to say, no, anything isn't possible. That's not how reality works.
Sonia doesn't ever respond to my comments. He knows who I am. But if I was a troll, I'm obviously the king troll because I can leave shit that bugs people and they don't even, I can't even acknowledge it. I've got to just ignore it.
So even the idea isglibbing on the idea of trolling, which is so obnoxious. Again, it's just like, I could just type on every video. So what about those allegations of pedophilia? Yeah, I could do that. I could force them to explain how. What do you mean? There's no allegations. What are you talking about? What? And put everybody on the defensive with rubbish talk. Why is that Mount Everest so tall? Why do I have to explain that to explain why Trump's a liar?
Graveyard, those motherfuckers are whistling by. And I'd still be making a lot of videos if that was any comfort to me. But that's not what I've been going for. I've been going for the following story, which is the point of this video.
He has a point and a purpose in his life. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think so. He's just a glib spectator.
There's very few times anybody says anything convincing. One reason I know that I'm open to it is because I have had a handful. I've said them before, Mel's basket case, a couple different things.
Right. He's been enlightened by Mel's basket case. He learned the secret of something from a schizophrenic. Great. Sure you did.
And more than that, but a few that I've committed to memory, and one I couldn't forget. So the main one I couldn't forget I want to finish with, because it's kind of scientific, but really it's just mathematical. I used to think, and I made some videos about, you know, the number pi is sort of this esoteric thing, these transcendental numbers, that in some sense they don't...
Transcendental numbers, he's calling them. Why? Why would we think they're transcendental? I mean, it is an actual number, and the point is that it's a number that has to fit every circle in the universe. So it has to be the same number for the big giant one and the little quantum one. So for all the circles, the same number has to actually work, which means the number has to be the small universe number. It has to fit the small circle first to fit the biggest circle. The smallest one's the challenging circle. That's the one it has to fit first. So yes, the number is going to be a Planck tiny number, because it has to have the Planck bit in it. So you won't get to the end of pi till you get to 10 to the minus whatever, 174, wherever that Planck distance is. The smallest line.
Because, or they're not well defined, or not that they don't exist, but they're infinitely difficult to define. And that's because for a transcendental number, it takes an infinite number of digits.
So he says infinite number. Transcendental number. So what we're supposed to know, somebody who's rational and logical and coherent, who thinks there should be coherent vocabulary, they're supposed to know what a transcendental number is. I'm supposed to, when somebody says transcendental number, I'm supposed to know what the fuck that means. That's not religious talk or something? What are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about?
That's not true with rational numbers. You know, even...
as compared to transcendental ones. So at least, yes, okay, fine. I only really care about rational ones. Ones that have some logical purpose, not the ones that are doing this tranny-densely thing.
Some bases, like in base 10, 1/3 is 0.333 for infinity. It takes an infinite number of 3s, oh dear. But in base 3, it's just 0.1. So rational numbers can be converted into finite digits. And the thing about...
Yeah, I know. But the trick to that is that the 10 in base 3 ends up being, you know, whatever, 9.999999999. Okay, so you end up with the same fucking problem. It doesn't fix odd and even numbers. Now, odd numbers don't become even numbers because you changed the base. So, yes, you fixed the 3 and you broke the 10. Duh.
Numbers like pi and e is you can't do it in a finite number of digits on any regular base or even a polynomial base, which is way more flexible. So
polynomial base, yeah, I'm sure that's fully legitimate. Yeah, tranny poly.
That's like, yeah, there's some like transcendental numbers is a good name for something like that. But I always thought you can't really...
Oh, good. So at least you're admitting that it's all transcendental bullshit. It's all some sort of whatever, ESP math. We don't have to actually do it. We just think it. I believe in you, 3.6828184844444568. I believe in you.
And on the number line. We can't really place it on the number line. Because it's got infinite digits. What's the next digit, John? 2. Okay. What's the next digit? 4. Ooh, okay. And you can't ever get it.
We don't have to get it, but we know it's there is the point, right? You do know that the universe... So again, he thinks, I guess, the universe is... It's a Horton, here's a who. Maybe he'll like to talk to David about that. And they can all talk about how there's, you know, there's hoobies living in the dust particles. Because, yes, the universe is just an infinite little fractally thing, blah, 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 blah. Little gooey bullshit.
Whereas number 2, it's just right there at 2. And Kazina McCool pointed out to me that the way we represent numbers and bases is arbitrary. That something have a finite number of digits in a number base is possibly the most meaningless way to define what was definitely well defined.
See, it's just silly. I'm just saying that we know that the electron has a certain position, and an atom has positions. Things have positions in space at any one frozen moment of time, and that there's a realness to that size and that position. And you can just, you want to pretend it's not real, but it is. We're just so distant. We're so far away from the small universe that we can't see that, yes, it's made out of bowling balls and bowling pins, and the alleys are a certain width, and there's rules to how it functions, and those rules are so consistent that clearly there's no voids in it. It's a solid foundation we're built out of, not your wooey mush. There is a Planck distance. Planck distance.
And in fact, and he's totally right with this, just 1,000,000,000%, and it spreads beyond that, the power of this revelation. Pi is extremely well defined for a number, because it's that ratio square to circle, right? It's the ratio square to circle that's involved. And that's what can't be rectified, right? And the transcendental number is that you have a square space that has to interact with the circular space, and our digits is what fails. Where that number pi...
No, it's a least. There's no circles. The real geometry is square. The universe doesn't have a circle. Circles are synthesized out of lines. At the core, the universe becomes less dimensional. You get smaller and smaller, things get less dimensional, not more dimensional. And the geometry becomes solid. And the idea of circle becomes, forget about it, there's no such thing. I would bet real money that if we can ever get to the smallest universe, it's not going to have any circles in it.
On a number line is like, hey, it's this ratio that's built into space. That's pretty fucking definite. Whereas the number 2, I have 2 pounds. Oh, wait, no, I have 32 quarts. I have a gallon, 1 gallon. Oh, wait, no, it's 10. Numbers are infinitely divisible. Why is 2 right there? Well, it's not. It could be that it's 2, shillings or dollars, and a dollar's actually 100 cents, so it's 200. Whereas pi is fucking pi, no matter what you do about it. So pi is actually the more definite.
Well, we know that pi isn't pi. There's nothing you can do about it. We know that most circles aren't perfect. We know most spheres aren't perfect. So we know that pi isn't pi. So that's just kind of bullshit right there, what he's saying. And, yeah, and so again, the amount of figures you use is going to be dependent on what you drew the circle with. If you drew it with and how big the circle is, and how small your line is that you even drew the circle. All that stuff's going to matter in terms of how perfect your creation of this circumference is to this diameter. So all that's just horseshit. There is no precision in the actual creation of these objects. We don't create these perfect objects. Nature doesn't create them. It just doesn't, because everything's jiggling. That's the whole problem. Everything's moving a little too much to ever create a perfect circle.
Then 2. And I learned that from Kazina McCool on YouTube. So I'm obviously listening.
Yes, and at the same period in time back then, I made the simple point too, that no, what the real secret to pi is that it has to work for the smallest circle you can make. And so obviously it has to be an insanely fine number.
All the other, terror that I've caused and fear that I've reaped and wet soiled pants that I have to take responsibility for doesn't hold anything against me. I'm obviously open-minded here. And if you don't get it, I just never held that against you. And was I supposed to?
So I don't even know what that was. I mean, clearly your violations, your ability to offend people has to do with the fact that you're a compulsive liar, a misparaphraser, an excuse maker, um, and yeah, you just generally don't give a fuck about this idea of there being a truth that needs that somebody needs to give a damn about the truth. That all these liars aren't making the are doing mankind a disservice. All this disinformation, all this fake, phony, weakly evidenced bullshit isn't doing mankind any good at all. It's as evil. Your physics lies are just as bad as Trump's lies.
Pi and E are the most definite numbers. That's how backward humans are. Is the transcendental numbers.
Again, he said it again. Transcendental. I just can't imagine this high school subject. Transcendental numbers. Yes, fuck calculus, trigonometry, and algebra. Let's do transcendental numbers. That would be fun.
Most specific. Unscalable. You want to multiply them by 2, you better take 2 and multiply them, because pi is pi. 2, who knows? 2 could be 4, could be 7, whatever. It depends on how many pieces are.
Oh yeah, 2 can be not 2. Yes, I'm sure it can. Yes. 2 cannot be, he just said it, right? He just said to you 2 can be some other number. No, it can't. 3s can have 2-ness. Don't think so.
Pi is fucking pi. QED.
All right. So again, there's lots of ways to understand why pi can't be like some kind of solid number. Like the ratio of the diameter to the circumference couldn't be just 3. And it's this logic of the fact that if you did have to make it all out of little lines, you had to make the circular thing out of the same thing you made the line thing out of. You can understand that the phase could never match. It's like one of these phase arguments. You could never make the lines have the same phase, so they could never be whole of each other. You'd always end up with one of the little segment too many. So if you tried to make the line, you made that line out like 4 perfect segments of the same length, and now I try to make something bigger than that out of those same segments. You can sort of understand that, yeah, there might be some arc where I can use just the same. I can use 5 of the segments, not 4. So I just added 1 quanta, right? So we're just adding 1 quanta of distance, and so then it would work. I could have a nice even number. I could have a whole number relationship. But to do this circle, that's another diameter this way, right? So you start with a diameter this way, and now you're going to end up with a diameter this way. And so you can sort of figure out that there's no way you could make that line without using a half quanta somewhere, less than a whole quanta. And that's what the 1,4 is basically indicating to you, is this is the amount of quanta off you're going to be. 1.4 blah 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 blah. That's your quanta off. 0.4, 0.14. All right. So anyway, yeah, Perot is just a despicable, lying piece of shit. So let's see if there's any viewers that said anything. Jesus Perez says, I just discovered that there are actual quantum philosophers in philosophy departments. Yeah, obviously it's not philosophy. Did you know this, Piro? Well, Piro didn't answer. Get rational pi. I don't know what that means. Infinity gets a mention. So this guy's called Infinity and Zero. Oh, that's what's his face? He used to be called Infinity something else. I like Inmendum, says Jesus, but you are more patient. Again, he's patient merely because nobody's attacking him. No. Again, you're just sitting and playing games with him. You're not pointing out how, well, isn't that bullshit, Mr. Pirro? Easy going. He is like a smart honey badger. with a shotgun. Exactly what kind of shotgun does he have? Except for lies. I kind of like that too. You guys are like yin and yang. No, we're like right and wrong. That was a great line, right? That was pretty. I mean, just fell out of my mouth, right? I mean, yes, the program said, what is the comparison? Oh, that's right. It's good and bad. Yes, no yin and yang. It's like good and bad, right and wrong, great, stinky, charming, fucktarded. No yin and yang shit here. Alright. Oh, here we have a comment from one of the trolls, no doubt. Marcius. Thumbed up for the dog impersonation. Oh, so, see, this is where their brains are. Durr! I was all who's a good boy for a second. So again, this is, you know, this is the depth. These are the people who are defining, you know, describing reality, or people who make faces at dogs. I mean, come on. But it really got good when you showed your humble side. And where was the humility in there? I'm the greatest arguer in the universe. You know, and I just say stuff like, you ain't can hear it. You ain't can hear it. Yeah. Oh, hilarious. All right. So, the fun has been made, and so I guess we're done. Let's see if there's any comments on the other Puro Dopey video. Since we're here, just go back in time a little bit. The other Puro video that I made an hour response to. Kenneth, crazy guy. Anyway, Kenneth, I got hit by a truck. I mean, nice guy, but he obviously was, something happened to that poor guy. Water can be seen as having an uncharacteristic feature that enables it to be a structured property. Well, that sounds like rubbish, but okay. There are a few distinctions. So water's magical. No, it's not magical. When that makes people think it is a living organism. Well, that's, again, I know no rational person would be fooled. Okay? This may be true to a certain level in biology, where water can be seen in the cycle of life and death. Amazing. Rubbish. It can also be just seen without any life or death in it. Water's water. Life and death are a separate subject. Water has features that make it quite remarkable in an awesome way. And isn't that just all little fairy princess mush? Every single substance, in my opinion, you can spend a lot of time glorifying it or maligning it. You know, they all have features that are really quite interesting. I mean, graphite, you know, carbon, you know, diamond, you know, graphene. You can make so many things out of it. So interesting. Nothing else really like it. You know, you can do all that nothing else really like it thing. Mercury. I mean, come on, incredibly interesting. You know, liquid metal. Alright, Quintuca. H2O is sometimes called a boomerang molecule, which is a reference to its shape. Well, again, I know, but the only thing important about it is the oxygen molecules with the, you know, the nice even number of electrons to grab two of. The oxygen atom has a high electromagnetic charge. No, it has a lot of electrons. That's what it has. Right there on the surface to grab. And the hydrogen atoms generate enough bonding and repulsing forces in relation to the oxygen atom. Well, again, that doesn't even make any sense. Obviously, in binding, you can't be doing too much repelling, so clearly the hydrogen nuclei is attracted to the oxygen electrons. And that's all that's happening. To domain an electromagnetic field that gives the molecule its unique boomerang shape. Blah, blah. I don't know if it's unique at all. There's a ton of molecules that have a lopsidedness. If you look up these terms, you will read explanations on water tends to exhibit strange properties. Rock on. Blah, 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 blah. What a pile of crap. Alright, so you see the issue, question mark. It's like when discs were brought back, vinyl, Vinyl, E. Why? Because there was more information, raw data, than science knew. Well, that's really bizarre. I don't know what idiot would want to bring back vinyl for any other reason, for any rational reason, except some sort of, I like to wear tie-dye shirts or something. So they had to bring them back, not to listen to, but to record music and then digitize it. This is an insane comment. This is truly insane. Going directly digital made music lose 998 order of magnitude of this for the disc that isn't very precise. This doesn't make any sense at all. Complete insanity. I mean, obviously, the only reason why the only thing that's getting degraded in any substantial way by digitizing is the fact that the file size gets. You can make the file size humongous by attempting to record all the possible sounds that can be created. But clearly the record, most of the sounds it's making are not the little tiny sounds it's making. The extra is noise. Okay, that's the error code, you idiot. And only a vinyl file wants to hear click, 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 click. Only an idiot would want to hear the noise sounds from the music. I suspect analog will come back once they figure out a way. No, I don't. You're no. Only an idiot would want it back, and it ain't gonna happen. It will likely be a chip. Anyway, our tool are basically in black and white. Worse, human can readily play in 3D space. They think they can't, but play with perspective a bit inverse. So it looked like film of old, but a mirror for all that, and they get chop cycle they can't figure out. Well, at least the ending was a good demonstration that the beginning was a mistake also. Nothing, again, the same idiot. Was looking at DraftScience latest video. The theme was your video, anyway. Yes, it was response video, not really a theme. He is right on one thing. He doesn't say per se. So I'm right about the thing I don't say. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm right about the thing I didn't say. That was like the hidden vinyl stuff. So I actually did say it, but I didn't really say it somehow. He is right on one thing. He doesn't say per se, but he seems imply. Science fit the universe in their device. That doesn't make much sense. This guy is obviously not English first. Be it server or experiment. Sadly, it looked like a machine with zero, and one can't properly analyze a universe that work with. Likely main rule, like I am about to word in a sentence that ought to be. Oh man, it's just, yeah, I don't know, right? There's really no point in reading too much of this stuff, right? Let's see if we get somewhere. White, and the other end, you say a magnitude of 1,000. The rest, it's all gray. 99.8 order of magnitude of gray. So I guess you listen to my black and white argument. Why didn't put color in? Because Kirchhoff's law still is main thing used. People equal P equal. Sky Scholar found P. Kirchhoff's law is invalid since science have known over last century that P doesn't equal P. These people are just hopelessly stupid. You will find no circumstance in which Kirchhoff's law fails, because it's just basically the simplest rule you can write, that if you don't make the voltage zero through your circuit, if you don't kill all of the pressure, then the pressure ends up killing the battery. You end up forcing the battery to lower its voltage. If I raise the ground, then I'm raised, and the battery has to stay at 9 volts, but I raise the ground, I'm lowering the total voltage of the circuit, and therefore the whole circuit's going to have to lower voltage in it, and you're going to have a feedback. It's going to just keep feeding back. And so the voltage will go to zero. You'll short your battery. So Kirchhoff's law has to always be true, Because if it isn't true, then you shorted your fucking battery. Dumbasses. Mathematics describes relationships, and the conclusions reached in amendments are truths as they pertain to the relationship. Okay. The fact that you can't go out and find a perfect cone or a conic section doesn't mean that statement about them are not true. It doesn't mean they're useful fictions. They're statements of fact pertaining to idealized cones. Well, in most circumstances, you don't have to have anything ideal to get the principle that, okay, water goes downhill. I mean, I don't need to have perfect cones to describe the velocity of the water as it would fall down a perfect cone, because the amount of difference it's going to make, if it's imperfect, isn't going to be any difference anybody could care about. I didn't say any differently. Yes, you did, no doubt. Sounds good to me. So again, he's agreeing, but he doesn't really agree. Math in general is a language for describing patterns. So right there, it's not describing patterns, it's describing effects. And effects aren't always a pattern. So this is just how they're so focused on their patterns, many of which seem quite irregular. No, most of them seem quite symmetrical, to the degree that statistically they have the same characteristics as random numbers would. So again, just bizarre. We see so few patterns that have any such relationship. And then, when we try to make a fake pattern, of creating fake chaos, we can't even do it. Our fake chaos, if I try to create a number generator, a random number generator, it ends up having a pattern stuck in it. I can't pull pattern out of it. What I was saying was weird is that these patterns often show up in nature after they've been found in math. So why don't you give an example of some of that bullshit? I mean, that's just such bullshit. The fact that nature relies, on mechanisms that it does redundantly, sort of like a fractal, that a similar theme is just folded over itself and over itself. Like that figures out how to find, over time, it figures out how to economize on where it puts seeds, so it uses the least amount of space to create the most amount of seeds. That over time evolution would find that pattern. Duh! Doesn't mean that it ever did any math. Oh, these people are just such idiots. Piero, can you make a video about spiral dynamics? So it's just more crap. On a possibly related note, your famous Illusion Exists live stream where Mendham nuts that conversation was hinting at what spiritualists might call beyond the materialist paradigm. Well, I'm sure I went nuts if you were doing spiritualism. Yes, I could. It's been a few years since I looked into it, though. Yeah, so I'll go study up on that and whatever the hell you called the number system. Your, theological numbers, whatever the fuck it was. What did he call them? Transcendental? What is that? It's like zombie math. Transdimensional numbers. What the fuck? I mean, just such garbage. Alright, so that's enough of a video. Sorry, some of these lately have been kind of long. I do have to get to more of the checklist stuff until I find somebody who can actually make arguments. Like I said, Piero's free to make arguments. He just doesn't. So again, don't pretend there's anything stopping him from preserving the integrity of physics by making videos explaining how I'm wrong about something. So he says it's incoherent, and yet he can't explain how it's incoherent. He can't show me the experiment to prove it's incoherent. He's got nothing. He's got no argument. And he'll never, 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 never answer any of my questions, right? So I've asked these direct questions. Well, so you're saying the surfaces, which we know light refracts when it goes through, you're saying those surfaces can't possibly be an explanation for anything. And then in the in the interferometer, again, just explain how this half silvering doesn't create divergence in the light, please. And how divergent doesn't create longer path lengths. Straight lines shorter than crooked lines. Please. And where's the interference happening? Yeah, that's another one. Do single photons going through the interferometer take both lengths? Do they go both paths? Is that your theory? That a single photon will travel both paths? What's the truth? Do you have one? Yeah, of course you don't have one. You just have vacuous, mushy, it's virtually photony thing. It's quantum, it's too complicated for you. It requires transcendental and transdimensional math. Blah, 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 blah. Just mush. Liquid oatmeal. Alright, till the next time and such. Yeah, I just have to hit the buttons, I guess. Hit one button and add the other button. And that'll be it. So, till the next time.